Yeah, there wasn't really meant to be a part 3 of this, but I got cut off there when my mic hit the floor and the video cut out. Gotta get myself some room quick. But anyway, sorry about that. I went on a rampant tirade about current state in some of the communities, and it's just sickening. Can we stick, basically what I'm trying to say is, can we stick to this, the craft and stuff, and, you know, what's happening in the comic books? It's alright to discuss what we don't like and the silliness of the writing and stuff like that, but when it gets into allegations that have yet to see their day in court and stuff, and yet to examine the, you know, I was hoping that we would learn something with the passing of Ed Pisker back in April 8th, which I don't, you know, I think there's a lot of people that would like this to just die away quietly. Well, it's not. Do you hear me, P? It's not, okay? And it's not about crucifying those people that were the biggest proponents of that. But I can tell you this. When it comes to the Neil Gaiman accusations lately, that's one thing. The information's coming in, and people are basically saying, yep, there's been 2 more girls that have reported incidences and all this shit. I think there was, you know, what I found really distasteful was someone that dug up Ed Pisker from April a few months back and said, you know, he'd say, I was the same way when the allegations with Ed Pisker were coming out. And those things still stand, you know. And it's like, no, they don't. They didn't stand then. When people actually took the time to examine it, ask the proper questions, all you did was bandwagon all over it. And you've created channels on that basis, which is, you know, it's your choice. You have that right and stuff. But don't tell me this is about justice or the truth. This is about suspicion. And when you looked into the cases, there was no crime committed there. You know what there was? There was a slimy community of people looking for a witch burning. Okay? But unfortunately, well, fuck them, but unfortunately for Ed, he was of the mind, which is not just unfortunate for him, but unfortunate for the state of things, where he realized, you know what? It doesn't matter. He wasn't willing to even handle the accusations. Like, a lot of people would say things like, oh, well, that just proves his guilt. You know? It does not. One thing I could say about Ed in that case was that he seemed to be of the mind that I think he was well aware that, you know, no matter, like, if he could defend himself adequately or not, which he really could have, if he just gave it time, just a few more, I don't want to go on about that. There's no point in that. It's too painful. But that regardless, the thing would, you know, you'd have a group of, I don't know, in a way, lowlifes themselves who would follow him around with this garbage. And he knew it. And he ended up making that decision. But rather quickly, I will add. But there was nothing presented that suggested to me that any crimes were committed. But there was things that suggested possibilities for insights for people to add their 2 cents, to exploit to this, to exploit to that. But, you know, but when they started using the word, like, pedophile towards Ed Pisker, because, how did it go? That story came out of an idea, a suspicion, where another comic book artist, I'm not going to get into it, she was told that if she's going to be in Pittsburgh and she needs a place to stay, she could crash at his place. Now, that doesn't sound like a very seductive, what do you call it, proposal. It really doesn't. It sounds like something you suggest to friends, like, you know, I mean, you know, you want to crash at my place, man? Something you say to a buddy if, you know, back in the day when you're in your 20s or late teens, where you go out drinking or something, or chasing girls or whatever, and nothing comes of it, and it's the end of the night, and you're ready to crash, and you stop drinking, and you say, you know, whatever. But it's just, you know, or even when you're little kids, sleepovers and stuff. It's like you can crash here, you know. It's nothing. But the fact that she was 17 when he said it, it's inappropriate. Now, I remember saying to myself, oh, wait, that was stupid to say that, right? But not really. I don't think any of it was stupid to say. I think it was genuine. I think it was misconstrued. But it didn't, the problem didn't present itself until I heard. There were other things that people didn't, other things that people didn't really look at. I remember on a few episodes, like Ed would speak openly. He'd say, well, you know, I had something about, I can't remember if it was about tidying up or something, but the part I do remember was that the fact that Ed had said, well, sometimes I have girls over. See, Jim Rugg, his partner, is married, and I believe he has children, and a family guy, but Ed's single. And, you know, I'm not saying he was playing the field and getting all wild. You know, from what I gather, some of the girls were actual girlfriends of his, you know. There weren't very many. I don't think Ed was a big ladies' man or anything. It was just seemed like an average guy. But after the accusations started, they started painting him as like this awkward, creepy. That's the favorite word, isn't it? Community, creepy, creepy. You guys are the creeps. You're dung beetles. I kind of compare it to like the ultra evangelical Christian that's all fascinated with the sex lives of their neighbors and stuff. You know what I mean? It's kind of, and I remember listening to one description where the guy was talking about how Neil Gaiman, allegedly, it's quite possible, he had proposed that someone, I don't know, something to do with a business arrangement or a rental agreement or something, boarding or something, where he suggested she give him oral sex to you know, solidify her position or to make things good between them. And the tuber said, he's like, what a pervert, right? And I'm thinking, what do you mean? This isn't a perverted issue. This is an ethical issue. The guy sounds like a creepy asshole to impose his power on somebody like that, to put them in a position, right? But what are you trying to say? Oral sex was a perversion? See, what I'm getting at is these assholes don't even care about the message they're actually portraying. They don't. The whole campaign is smear. The whole campaign is to separate themselves from some of the uglies that they hear about in a way to bolster their own selves. I'm not condoning any of that shit if it turns out to be true. Shit, if it turned out to be false, I wouldn't condone it. What I am saying is that a lot of this stuff comes down to virtue signaling in a big way that's going on between, I'd say, male cucks, and they're appealing to the opposite sex. Now, justice is justice either way. Male and female don't even come into play. But there's something going on here where people don't care about the truth more than the idea of getting to punishments before they even know, before that person has even seen a court of law. They don't understand these concepts. And I'll tell you who does understand these concepts. Some of the ancient cultures understand these concepts, and they see that kind of talk as true evil. Unfortunately, it is the kind of evil that is unconscious to the offender when they're doing it. But it's true. Well, first of all, you don't know if it's true. And secondly, you're not working very hard to find out if it is before you go spreading it. And in a way, buddy, I'm sorry. I don't care. You can take this any way you want, and I hope you take it right up your ass. You're the fucking scum. And there's a problem there. And I am convinced, now that I've heard it, someone tastelessly brought up the Ed Pisker situation, and those ideas still stand. How tasteless. How unremorseful. this isn't about whether you're a fan or not a fan. I don't give a fuck about Neil Gaiman. I don't. But I think the way people are going about this is questionable. And I know it was questionable when it cost Ed Pisker his life. I couldn't believe it. But I could feel the build-up, and it was all wrong. And then people, a lot of people did really well in digging up the dirt, what was being said, what the accusations are. But when you look at them, they're not that strong. A lot of it is stuff that you would experience in everyday life, where you get the disgruntled girlfriend that had, sometimes they had some sort of a liaison, or they had a brief encounter with the guy they just assume didn't have other girlfriends in his past. And when they found out, and then he's mentioning that sometimes he has girls over, and they're one of them, that's when the poop starts hitting the fan. Especially when they're a shitty, inspiring artist who couldn't draw themselves out of a wet paper bag, trying to come across as something, just ruining the communities, right? Ruining the industry with their bullshit. Well, when you get individuals like that, fragile as it is, and they see you starting, Ed was just starting to flower. He had some things behind his, under his belt that he had produced. There's a lot of work there. Ed was starting to realize that it was a body of work that was most important, and that he be productive all the way through. And he was dedicating himself to that. Not to mention a love he had for comic book history and knowing the ins and outs of characters and their stories, characters being the actual creators in the industry. Like, these were the kind of things, as him and Jim would sit over and observe different works and just make critiques and examinations on the process. This was a new thing that was taking off. Like, this was the kind of thing that was more, not just for fans. Oh, for fans for sure. But at the same time, it was showing people in the craft some of the things they wanted to hear. Some of the things that they had observed themselves but haven't, there was no conversation about these things, and suddenly there was this outlet. I think a lot of people kind of started realizing, well, that's what it is, This is like if you're sitting there, I don't know, in the classroom or in a comic book shop or something, and you and a few friends are just poring over a book and observing and investigating parts of it here and there and looking at technique. That's what it is, man. That's the good stuff. So they were on to that. But Ed was also just about to engage in an art show. He was growing. Ed wasn't perfect. I remember, he'd say things and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. I didn't agree with everything he said. And I'm not even going to get into that, because those things, they really aren't that important. They're not about, anything actually criminal or abusive. It's just a mouth, But I think these disgruntled, I won't say the word, but it starts with a C and ends with a TS, were running their mouth for other reasons. But this running of the mouth has been interesting. I've noticed, and I've seen this happen to buddies. I've been in situations, nothing too serious, but where you realize that an attitude has changed. There's flirtations, either in the workplace or out at a party or something, some engagement, right? These things get, in a bar, it doesn't, But what happens is this goes on, and it's entertained, and it's appreciated, and it's not deflected upon, and you're getting along great, right? Now, as I mentioned, I know one buddy of mine, he engaged in something like that, and it was all well and good and fine. And then, now I don't know what actually happened. I wasn't there, the person, it's possible, but eventually this person she seemed to be crazy friends with him, right? Suddenly charged him with some sort of verbal abuse or whatever. He ended up losing his job. They used different excuses, right? Because it was causing this tension, whatever. But later on that week, that same girl that made the accusations was trying to pick him up in the bar. Do you understand? Like, we don't always know what's really going on there. But it seems to me that the change in attitude and how it's displayed often has to do with the guy's attitude toward the young woman in question. Let me explain. Something starts out with some flirtation, there's a little bit of courtship, etc., what have you. But nothing comes of it. The flirtations are extreme, it's getting raunchier, whatever. You know, if you're not involved in it, you don't want to hear it. It's kind of annoying, right? You guys keep that, get a room, you guys, right? Whatever. And then none of it comes to fruition. That's all well and good. That's fine. The waters are calm. But once that female in question finds out that that guy, even though he had no obligation to the other female he was flirting with, is flirting with another female, that's when the shit hits the fan. And that's where it gets ridiculous, and that is the part that gets buried in all of this. Quite often, the person in question doesn't really feel abused. They don't. They're feeling vindictive. Hey, anyone has the right to their feelings. But when you go pressing charges and you're looking for a crime or an instance of actual abuse, you better have your shit on straight. Because people that try to do that, false accusations, as far as I'm concerned, you should, they should, I'm not endorsing this, but the anger for such things is of this nature. They should be chained to a fucking car and driven across the state. It's horrible to do that. You're ruining young men's lives like this. Stuff like that can never get cleared up. And it's weird. The ghouls that come out of the the ghouls that come out of the woodwork, that get on the bandwagon to attack these people, you look at them and you're like, I know why you're getting on this bandwagon. You'll do anything to try and prop yourself up. You fucking loser. That's another issue altogether. But this wasn't really supposed to be about all that. But these things are like sitting there like as an open wound. And it gets sickening. It's this culture. A lot of things are going the way of the dodo. That's just a reality. A lot of our culture is being, well, I'm just going to say it. It will be replaced. But I don't think people, upon mass, are ready to face the ultimate reality. And I don't want to go into like dividing the sexes on this issue either. Okay, I don't. But there are changes happening, and a lot of this is requiring a decay from within. And I think the comic book communities are experiencing that too. They're literally eating themselves. There are literally, socially, a lot of very sick people in very straight guys out there. Very straight guys. G-U-I-S-E. To be clear. That aren't even aware that they have issues. Aren't even aware of the lack of ethics or morality they impose on society when they make allegations that they're not sure are true. But that's the way things are going. So, at the same time, it's amazing how many more people are wrapped up in that rather than this kind of thing like learning the craft or whatever, or sticking to just the comics or whatever. I mean, hey, clickbait is clickbait. Everyone has their right to it. I get that. I don't give a shit about that. Obviously, I'm not the guy. I never ask people to click a like or subscribe, because I don't, that's not my motivation. I just put things up here and there once in a while out of boredness. I'm not, you know, I don't have any aspirations about building a channel or anything like that and what is required. There's nothing wrong. You can choose your own content, but I'm just saying, when it comes to people's responsibilities, like, I'm sorry, there are some real witch burners out there trying to see if the witch turns green. And even when they fail in doing that, you'll find out that they still haven't really examined the information properly or asked the proper question. They just pile it on. There's something disturbing about that kind of thing. Definitely. But the most disturbing thing about it, as I've said before, is I don't even think they're aware of it. Consciously, ethically, it doesn't enter the radar. They think it's all about, oh, well, you're a Neil Gaiman fan, so of course, I'm not. Not a bit. And I'm not putting him down. I've never even engaged in his work. I know who he is, I know about his prowess, but I don't care about him and that. Maybe I will, maybe I'll. I did put something on my shelf not too long ago, one of his books that I'll get around to. A large, is it a large part? Anyway, it's Norse mythology, and I thought, that's cool. I'll give that a thumb through, but I haven't yet, so I don't know. That's not why that's not why I'm defending. And some of these people posting this shit shower are determined to prove that it's just because the people are fans that they don't want to face the reality about, just stop it. Why are you so limited in your thinking? There are higher levels of ethics and morals that are usually come from education. They even come from certain strains of religions that try to... It's not like they're saying, oh, we don't want to say anything negative, or we don't want to, talk ill of somebody, right? Those same religions believe in justice. But what they're saying is that it needs to be considered, like, why? What are your motivations? And if the truth isn't one of them, and you're just geared up thinking that punishment and justice are the same thing necessarily, then you got a problem. But unfortunately, you got this problem that no one can really point out to you. You don't get it. You don't get it. You don't understand what a court of law is for. As long as you know that there's the possibility of corruption within that court of law, then why should we listen? That's rant and raid and be the jury of public opinion or whatever. That's just horseshit. The average person, isn't really going to take these issues seriously enough to investigate whether or not a person is guilty or not. A lot of it is just bandwagon stuff. And we need to realize that. And I think this rant is really just about, when it comes to the Ed Pisker situation, I think that when the evidence is examined, you see signs of suspicion at the very worst. I mean, at the very least. At worst, you see suspicions of perhaps someone thinking about doing something, but no real indication that that was the case. No real indication that it couldn't be that innocent thing. And you got to ask yourself this question. Why aren't these, and I'm going to say it, this might surprise some people. We already know what the women in question, their take is, okay? So we need not get into that. But why the men doing the detracting and the attacking of Ed Pisker's character, why? Ask this question. Why they insist that it must be the case? That is a question they need to ask themselves. Because the guilt they're trying to inflict on Ed Pisker has a lot to do with how they feel about themselves. I'm quite sure of that. And all the things they'd like to cover up and not go near, and, you know, it's horseshit. And because a reasonable mind can look at a situation where they think, oh, I could see how that could happen, but I could also see this. But they lean hard on the other, the worst case scenario. Why? You fucking hypocritical phonies. What are you trying to nail people for? Thought crimes now? You idiots. And then you want to, in the same mouth, in the same video, promote your work? Go fuck yourself. I just assume take a deep, hard shit right on your book and post it. You're the one living in fiction. Fucking idiot. Anyway, that's a little harsh. I don't know. I was, a couple weeks ago, I was laughing about how some of these people are getting up online with their depression and stuff and going on about it. And, you know, and I was asking the question, well, why the hell are you going to Dr. YouTube thinking you're going to, you know, get up? It's funny, though, but when you get on a rant, you start realizing you're venting things that probably need to be said or you need to get out. But the point is that there is an attachment to some of the individuals out there trying to get better at their work and stuff, and they got their head all wrapped up around a whole bunch of bullshit. I have no problem with people speaking their mind, but when your mind turns out to be a little bit retarded, so to speak, I don't mean literally, and your ideas are kind of shit, or they haven't really been examined by yourself, I'm going to point out some things and go, well, why do you think, you know what I mean? I'm not going to just agree with everything you say, and I'm not going to care if you suddenly have a deep personal problem with me, because I don't. That just adds to your flaws, you idiot. I don't want the wars. I don't want, you know, I don't want any of that crap, any of your personal problems. Keep them to yourself. You know, what are you trying to do? Get other people to fight your own battles for you? You are what you are. And a little bit of honesty with yourself might get you along in what you're trying to accomplish in your art. But you're still falling for some real bullshit. And by the way, don't flex if you don't got the muscle. You can go to the gym. You can stand in a garage. It don't make you a car. But if you don't know what the hell you're doing, I mean, just another point of delusion, okay? What are you? A mental case? Enough. Get over your personal problem. This isn't about, there is no me and you. You're just annoying. God. Truth is, I look at, I think if I knew you or met you, I'd probably try and help you out with your drawing. And I'm not, that has nothing to do with me being a nice guy or something, but I could see, you know, like, I don't have any reason to hold back on that. I'd just be like, you know, but, you know, when you start denying, like, there's a point where I was saying that, you know, Jack Kirby himself, you know, despite academic criticisms or anatomical criticisms about his work, he believed that the person could do it. Meaning, they can draw. He believed everyone could draw. Now, that's idealistic. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I agree with the sentiment, with the idea behind that. Meaning that he felt that if a person could look at the work and see a flaw, and then just change it and tweak it and play with it until it worked, they could do it. And at the time when I first heard that, I didn't really think about what that meant. But when you look at it, what it happens is people will see flaws in their work, but they won't admit it to themselves, and they'll hope that no one else sees it. And the people that do mention it, they got a problem with them instead of a problem with the art, which is stupid. Which shows the person has emotional problems. It has nothing to do with what they're trying to achieve. They shoot themselves in the foot. So, you know, that being said, I mentioned the idea that if you recognize a flaw in your picture and you're trying to fix it by erasing it, erasing, redrawing, and always remembering that erasing that portion of the drawing isn't going to ruin the rest of the drawing. Always remember that. But the thing is, if you're doing that, you're hammering away and it's just not working and you just can't get it, what you need to do is go and reference that. You got to find those angles, you got to look at it in a life drawing or photography or whatever, and look at the foreshortening, look at the contours. But usually what happens, if you're trying to render a certain pose in your drawing or a certain effect in your drawing and you can't get it, when you find the reference and you look at it, immediately, like that, you realize where you went wrong. Oh, because you've been digging so hard and trying to get so close to the problem that you wanted to fix that you see it immediately. Okay? You'll see it immediately and then you go back and you fix it. But if you decide not to do it and you can't do it and you see it all messed up like that and you leave it like that and say, oh, well. Here's the foolish thing that people are saying, and I hope you are listening. Don't tell yourself, oh, we're not all, this is a matter of talent. Especially when you're talking about guys like Todd McFarlane, okay? I mean, if you could have an honest discussion, and it was like guys just not holding back, and you asked Jim Lee about Todd McFarlane, or, well, some other artists too. Actually not, I don't want to bring up the names, sorry about that, Jim, and ask them about how they felt about Todd's work, it would be pretty bad. In fact, Todd himself is pretty clear on his criticisms that as he was learning his craft, he was cutting corners like crazy, and he could see that, but he knew there were things he could do, there were tricks he could do to get around things. And that very implement is the same thing I believe Kirby was talking about. And, so when you start talking about, oh, what a talent, I don't think Todd McFarlane himself would agree with you that, yeah, I so am. But of course you're going to like compliments. But Todd has been pretty straightforward with people about a great many of things. He puts it right in front of their face and they still don't get it. They doubt it. But these are character flaws within the individuals, I think. I've seen this in other areas too. I have. Where you'll have, for example, one of the ones like in the area of bodybuilding. You'd have pros from the past, right? We'll say mid-70s, early 80s, where they would tell you, oh God, actually, right up until late 80s even. Oh, I don't know. The chronology, I won't get specific on, but I'll put it to you like this. Now, these guys were great in their day, right? In achieving what they did. And it was those same guys that started coming out and being honest about drug use and steroid use back in the day, okay? And they were starting to tell people, once we got into the 2000s, that they couldn't believe how much more these new young stupid athletes were drugging. And they would tell you that back in the day we didn't use half that amount and blah blah blah, right? And the people that were being told this, all they did was doubt it. Oh yeah, sure, whatever. And it's like those same guys got to the point where they're like, shit, you try and tell them, but they don't want to hear it. But here's an interesting point. Those same guys that didn't want to hear it were the same guys that thought it was all about that. They didn't know how to train. They didn't know how to eat. They didn't know how to rest. They didn't know shit about the thing, and they thought drugs would do it all. And that's why they fail miserably. Some of them even died. You know? I mean, but that's the thing. You don't want to hear the truth. Good luck. You know, especially when it comes to, you know, developing as an artist. You just want people to be online, your little fake buddies there, and say how, oh wow, that's really a masterpiece in that. And you go, oh thanks, that's, wow, that means a lot to me. Patting your chest. Give me a fucking break. It's a whole different world. You can't live in a bubble like that. You got to learn to take criticism. My work didn't start to change until I went to, I mentioned this before, I went to a certain Comic-Con. And a couple of artists gave me the skinny. But they didn't give me the skinny without me walking up to them and saying, look, I know what I'm doing right. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And they'd look at me like, what did you just say? Right? Because it's uncommon. People don't want criticism. I do. So I don't make the mistakes. What do you want to do? Pretend they're not there? If you don't hear them, they're not there? We're men, goddammit. So just stop it. Never mind. I don't really know what that's about, but you may, on another note, this particular drawing, when I was looking at flaws and stuff, yeah, that it was just to catch up on that, and the video got interrupted. There's not much more to go on about. It's just me ranting, sitting here, lazy day on my couch, half dressed, you know, couch potato wing it. That's basically how I scribbled up the page. I, you know, scribble a bit, draw in some, take a photo, or sorry, film it a bit, turn off the camera, pause the camera, draw a bit more, put it, you know, that it has to be that. I'd love to do a time-lapse thing where I sit there and that would be great, but I don't quite know how to do that yet. Also, I need a better camera too, something more high def, but I can't afford it right now. That's just a reality. But yeah, I certainly want to talk more about this, and some of the things that I've found in some of my old comic books that I overlooked and stuff, and sharing that, and getting some sort of conversation going, or if not, it's just out there for people to take in. I'm good with it. I don't care. I'm not sure about the effect of any of this stuff and what it really matters, but people seem, whatever. So those are my real intentions. And I wanted to point out that point about honesty, about looking at our work and looking at flaws. I also mentioned in the first video that, you know, I got piles in the archives where I can look at drawings today and go, I know now specifically why this drawing doesn't work, and I didn't know it then. That's because yada, 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 and this kind of thing. And I look at my work today, and I can still see I got some bugs to work out. And hopefully, you know, I'll continue to do that, work these things out. But I have no real aspirations. Sure, I have ideas about the dream life and what I'd love to do and stuff. Line art and comic book art isn't the only kind of art I engage in. I also do oil paintings, time and time again. I've sold a couple here and there. Sometimes I've even just given the stuff away. More of a, I don't know, an exercise for myself. Maybe we'll get some of those up, see what I have left in our archives, and take a look at those and discuss what was going on then. There's some funny stories behind a lot of the drawings. You know? I don't know. I have no high expectations here. I'm not asking people to subscribe or give me a like or any of that stuff. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Whatever. I share. Sometimes people agree with something I'm saying. That's good to know. I mean, yeah, for what it's worth. But, you know, when it comes to this, I'm even breaking one of my rules by ranting on about the current problems socially in the communities today, people back and forthing like that. It has nothing to do with passion or love for this art form, this industry, anything. And there's an old expression: if you want to beat, you know, when it comes to darkness, you can't beat it back with a stick. You can't beat it with a stick. What do? You light a candle, right? That'll light up the whole room. It's not about feelings. It's about, when it comes to this, concentrate on this, because this is what it's about. This is what attracted people to the communities in the first place before everyone was at each other's throat and just being a pack of bastards, okay? And talk about those things if you can. I'm not saying ignoring, you know, you should be ignoring people who are getting out of hand or doing bad things. Absolutely not. But I don't think people should be jumping to conclusions the way they have been by using labels that they cannot justify. And in fact, I believe that until those things are proven in a court of law, people should be held accountable for saying such things. I really do, especially when you're talking about the internet. I don't believe on big bans on the internet and freedom of speech. I believe in freedom of speech to the nth degree. Although now I would say, with good old Sally taking over everything else, even in YouTube now, it's becoming more, let's face it, okay? With all their ideas about what they think is right and what they think is appropriate and how you should speak and what you should say and what you shouldn't say, the internet is becoming more, or sorry, YouTube itself is becoming more and more sexually explicit. It just is. And they don't want to hear any criticism. Don't you dare tell me, you know, losing their goddamn minds. I mean, it's just, you know, I mean, this isn't a matter of taste. Don't get me wrong. I'm heterosexual. But I'm talking about, why are certain guidelines ignored while others are hammered upon? What is going on, Venus? You're getting out of hand, lady. Like, I mean, let's be honest about these things. Like I said, I don't believe in a heavy hand when it comes to imposing censorship on our freedom of speech. But I do believe when it comes to labeling someone or destroying someone's character by character assassination before Neil or Ed's day in court, that's just bullshit. And those people need to be held responsible. You can't go around shutting everybody up. But if someone does that, and there is a record of it that they've used a title that has not been proved, then I'm sorry, you can't do that. Like, look at the thing with Eddie P. And then I'm just going to leave this alone. Eddie P, it was all about a communication where he said, look, if you need a place to stay in Pittsburgh when you're in, you can crash at my place. She was 17 at the time. Okay? Right? Uh-oh. That must mean this. That must mean that. Well, it could have. Might have even entered his mind. I don't know. Probably. It could have. I'll tell you something else. It could have entered his mind, and he could have had the idea that, you know, like a normal person, you know, I'm not going to go there. All right, wake up. You know, what kind of standards are you? These aren't standards. This is witch-burning bullshit. And so what people started doing, although no such thing took place, we know that no such thing took place. These were words that someone spoke. Right? You can crash at my place. Never happened. Never did that. They never engaged in that. Nothing happened there. Nothing happened. But he was being called a pedophile for that. People that do that need to be charged. They need to be charged. That kind of thing would have never gone away. And I think that's something that Ed realized. And that's why he made the decision he did. Okay, I'm not going to get into it and say I know what he was thinking, but this is the horrible situation. And these people need to be held responsible. I believe that, absolutely. And it's not necessarily See, when I say that, it's not necessarily the people that, the young ladies who decided to run their mouth but not press charges, decided to run their mouth about these things, leak it out all over the place, and get people, wrapped up in a shitstorm of gossip, right? I'm not necessarily talking about them. I'm talking about people calling, it could be anyone random, not even attached to this, that goes online and starts calling this guy a pedophile. Because other people look at it and they go, what's this, right? And then, you know what I mean? But that's what happened. It happened so goddamn fast. Before people even, someone, I remember chatting about this, said something about that today, I think it was generalizing, but he was saying, today people just don't process information properly. They don't allow time to pass and to explore things. They just, I'm sorry, a lot of these fucking ghouls just jump on the bandwagon with their clubs, ready to toast someone. And a lot of it, and I hate to say it, and I don't feel fucking sorry for these fucking creeps at all, because once they get to a certain age, they should know better, okay? But some of them are simply reflecting things they've experienced in the past. And it's the old situation concerned with that phrase of the abused becoming the abuser. Take that for what it's worth. And that a lot of these creeps that were, I don't know, abused, kicked around, mocked, or whatever, some of them had a hard time in high school, or whatever the case may be, they use different outlets later on in life. Suddenly they're doing something, especially in something like comic books, where they feel that they found some sort of niche where, oh, something's going to work. Oh, this is different. Now it's my club. It's, and I got to be nervous about this person trying to enter the creepy fold or whatever. They get all weirded out and they're looking for an outlet somehow to subconsciously punish someone the way they were punished for, in the past. The abused becomes the abuser. It's a whole different. I'm no doctor, but you live life and you see these things and you're like, shut up, buddy. You're the last person that should be talking about this stuff, okay? I mean, you really are. And then I want to top this one off by someone that went on the internet who was looking at these new expressions or disdain for just such a social culture. And he was saying, look, when people find out who you are, some of them are going to attack you, turn against you. And I thought, and he said, if you can't accept that, why don't you just go read a book or something? Okay. First of all, believe it or not, that's a personal jab, okay? Aimed at someone who does, in fact, read books, okay? Reading books isn't really big on Generation Z, okay? I'm just going to say, I don't care, I don't want to get into it, whatever, okay? That's a personal jab. But what's more important here in that statement is this. But that's the problem, buddy. They start in with the attack before they know who that person is. They're just going in there, guns a-blazing, when they find out who you are. There's guys going on who still don't know who Ed Pisker was. They've made up their minds about the situation without even examining the information. They just go by the allegations. That's it. That's the end of it. Well, some people during that time did look at the allegations and started looking deeply into them and asking the questions that could have occurred in a court of law. And when you did that, you realized, wait a minute, there's nothing here. This is a weak case. There's nothing here to go on. And you expect me to ride public opinion on this? Go fuck yourself. I don't care. One against thousands. Fucking blow me. Like, don't ask me to join that kind of mentality. I won't do it. You're full of shit, you've got issues of your own, and you need to get off this bandwagon. Or admit that this is all about clicks and likes, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. There's nothing wrong with making money either, which is the other accusation a new generation is really fond of. Like it's some sort of crime you should be ashamed of, making money. Give me a break. Just another element of a crumbling civilization. But there's so many points to be made, but a lot of these points come down to understanding. And what are you supposed to do? You know, I mean, I guess you voice your opinion like everyone else, and you hope to yourself that first you make sense to yourself, and then you hope that you convey that. You can deliver the reasons why you're not comfortable with the common consensus. It has nothing to do with being nice to somebody or not nice to somebody. Buddy, I'm not a nice fucking guy. I don't have patience for people's bullshit. Okay? I'm not that guy. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about something else. It has to do with ethics. Or ultimate justice, real justice. Not just fucking bandwagon witch-burning bullshit. Okay? Which a lot of people jump on just out of nervousness. They don't want to go against the, like, just weak ass. Anyway. It almost gets to the point where you're wondering, why complain about such things? What do you think? You're going to change it? No. It's not that. But you realize that you can see these things for what they are. And you can also see things that once you point them out to the person, they can even see that, but they don't want to hear it. Because that has a lot to do with dealing with their problem, being honest with themselves. Like I said, it has nothing to do with being nice to the person you're accusing, and that is the common mistake I see. You know, someone, I just want the pain to stop. They virtue signal. Well, that's nice. You just want the pain to stop. Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes, you know, those same people would think someone was guilty in the case of Ed Pisker or whatnot, right? And they'll say things, oh, just, you know, they feel bad for the person, right? But they don't care about the investigation, right? They just hope they're not feeling pain. Well, wow, aren't you just so diplomatic and virtuous? Okay? I don't want to rail against that because it's a positive thing when I see that people aren't climbing on someone's back. Because it becomes a personal thing where they're trying to promote or express their disdain for something as ugly as sexual abuse or something along those lines, which is understandable. Any sane person can take that position, but at the same time, they're riding that horse and using someone as a poster child for that, which hasn't, even if it hasn't been deemed that the person is guilty, they don't want to go near it. I mean, there are people like that in my own fucking family who I no longer look at the same way. I'm like, you're just, no wonder you lie so much. You know? You can't take a stand on anything ethically. You're worried about your own, get out of here. Don't talk to me. You're worried about your own self. Anyway. Just goes on and on like that. Sick of it. I don't know. In a way, I look at this, it's a waste of breath because I know it's going to continue to go on, and Anil won't be the last, and Ed probably won't be the last to have committed suicide or whatever. But you would hope that people would get the point, but some people just don't get it. They're thinking it's about something else. You know, you either go with the witch burning or you're part of the problem. It's like, no, let's find out what really happened. We have to push up against this and get as close to it as we can before we start, you know, just determining what truth is. You think you guys know what the truth is? Give me a break. Anyway, different issue altogether. So there you have it. This drawing is probably going to end up on another project, maybe when it's colored and stuff, that I'll be putting together concerning the established Marvel universe, where we look through the archives, the various Marvel indexes of the Marvel universe, whether it be the comic book series of the 80s or 2008 or the later revamped version of the Marvel Encyclopedia in 2014, whatever. There's so many contributors and so many custodians of the established universe that I'm going to do one on Marvel, and this will probably end up on it. I'm not sure about that yet, but we'll see. I don't know. You're welcome to tune into that. I'll have some fun there. And I promise no outside rants. Actually, some things I found in the past to be interesting too. Old ads and whatnot. But anyway, thanks for letting me take up your time and having me pour over my cheesy drawing here. And I guess that's it. That wraps up this portion. I think I've covered all the things I wanted to do concerning the drawing and getting a few things off my chest. I'll just leave alone for now. But anyway, I'll tell you, I haven't been confronted about this garbage. But we know that the kind of people we're talking about hit from the back. Be seeing you around. I'll be hitting you right in the front, right between the eyes. Take it easy.